All right, let's go. Hi, it's Yoojin Lee, and you're listening to Money Crashers podcast. I'm here to make your financial life better by helping you make wiser choices about managing, saving, investing, and spending money. On today's episode, I have Daryl Weber, a brand consultant, speaker, and author of the book Brand Seduction, How Neuroscience Can Help Marketers Build Memorable Brands. Daryl, can you tell us the TLDR of the book?
Yeah, sure. So it's about understanding the unconscious side of brands, which has just fascinated me. I wanted to know how brands live in the mind. And so I go through how emotions, decision-making, perception, memory, attention, all of that feeds into our decisions and how we decide to make a brand choice one over another.
Okay, that's so interesting. That's really deep. I want to dive into it, but let's rewind a little bit first. So Daryl, you graduated from Columbia University with a BA in psychology, and you also played D1 men's tennis team and sang in their a cappella group. Is that correct?
That's true. It was a very busy few years.
And then you went to work as a strategic planner at Saatchi & Saatchi. I have a background in fashion business, so I'm very familiar with that brand. And then you went on to work as a global director of creative strategy at the CocaCola company. That's based in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, Coke's headquarters in Atlanta. We actually moved down there for that job, yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me more about your last role?
Yeah, so I guess my last full-time job before I was working for myself was at Coke, and I was global director of creative strategy there, which is a big fancy way, I guess, of saying I was helping figure out what the messages should be for many of Coke's brands. So Coke owns, I think they got rid of many recently, but they at the time owned 200 brands or something around the world. And I worked on a lot of the non-sparkling brands, so Minute Maid, Vitamin Water, Powerade, an iced tea brand called Fuse Tea, things like that. And I was basically helping figure out what can we say about these brands in a sort of globally resonant way. So finding kind of universal truths that'll be true around the world that will help drive the business behind those brands.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. So what are those universal truths? For instance, let's say Fuse Tea. What is a universal truth about that product and the customer who's drinking it?
Yeah, so basically in any kind of marketing or strategy, finding a core human truth is, I think, a great way to start for anything. We call it the key insight often. And when you're working on a global brand, it's very tricky because you're going into many different cultures around the world. And obviously people are very different around the world. They have different drinking habits, behaviors, but also just different lives and opinions and, things are very different. So that's why I call it a universal truth in that case. It's something that's going to be true to all humans, no matter who you are, where you are, what kind of life you're living. So for Fuse Tea, that was actually a kind of a new brand that Coke was launching at the time. And iced tea wasn't really that popular in most countries around the world. Hot tea is very popular, and iced tea was big in America. But they wanted a brand that could sort of introduce iced tea to new people. And we tapped into this idea of curiosity with that brand, that we wanted to target people who are open to trying something new and that would be willing to kind of explore some new tastes. And so the brand also had interesting combinations of flavors. So we played with this idea of curiosity, that we are a curious brand who's experimenting and putting new flavors together. And that would match up with you as a curious person. You'd be interested in trying something new and different and trying some new tastes. And that was kind of our launch, marketing campaign was built around that sort of core idea. And curiosity, being open to new things, that's one of those kind of universal truths.
That's so fascinating. And did you work at Coca-Cola before you wrote the book or after?
Before. So I had the idea for many years, and kind of
writing in the book.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd worked in advertising before, and then at brand strategy consultancy called Red Scout, and then at Coke. And I really had been working on some of the biggest brands in the world, right, with CocaCola or Nike, or I also worked for PepsiCo and Diageo, which is a huge liquor company that owns brands like Johnny Walker and Kettle One and Tanqueray and, many top brands. And I just saw, talking to all these big marketers at big brands, that they were often assuming they knew how brands worked in the minds of people and how their advertising would convince people or communicate or persuade people to buy their products. And it felt like it was based mostly on their work experience, what they had seen and done and, seen work in the marketplace. But there's actually all this academic research out there on memory and attention and how humans kind of take in their surroundings and make sense of it, and how then memory affects our decisions, right? These are studied by psychologists and neuroscientists. And there's actually a lot of marketing researchers who study this and how its implications for our marketing. But I just saw, I started sort of tapping into that and saying, oh, this is fascinating. There's all this knowledge out here. But most of the marketers I was working with had no idea that any of that existed. And there's this huge chasm between the kind of academic marketers who are, PhDs in marketing, who are teaching at universities, and then the marketers who are practicing it every day. And with the book, my goal was to kind of bridge that gap a little bit and say, here's what we know about human psychology and consumer psychology, and how can that make us better, smarter marketers if we're, more familiar with it.
Wow. You're right. There actually is a big gap, and I've seen that myself. And I actually want to read your book now. I haven't read it yet, but I want to read it now because I feel like there's so much more to uncover. Even beyond this podcast, I feel like I want to ask more questions about it. So you mentioned that Coca-Cola was your last full-time job. So what do you do now? I know you are consulting on the side, right? So tell me more about the consulting job.
Yeah, so I'm splitting my time between consulting and being an entrepreneur. Like us both are sort of entrepreneurial in that I'm working for myself on both sides of it. But consulting, and then I also launched my own brand. So, I can tell you about the consulting first. I do brand strategy consulting. It's very similar to what I was doing at Red Scout and what I did internally at Coke. It's basically partnering with companies to help figure out who they should target, who their best audience would be, most receptive to it. We do a lot of market research. So things like focus groups, interviews, ethnographies, where we actually go out and experience the brand or product or category with the person. Those kinds of things. We do desk research, just kind of looking online. There's tons you can find online now, really cheaply, and if you're scrappy. And then that all informs a strategy for the brand. So where should this brand go? What should its future look like? What new products can it come out with? I do a lot of innovation consulting, which is helping companies decide what new products make sense for their brand, for the category, for the cultural trends related to that category. Or we do, and that can include some, like even going farther into naming and design. I'm not a designer myself, but I'll help brief the designers who will bring the brand to life, even the advertising agencies who will then advertise, communicate the message. But really what I'm helping develop is sort of the brand positioning. What does this brand stand for at its core? Who is it reaching? What is that sort of core insight, like I mentioned earlier? And what is the message that's going to most resonate with them and differentiate them from the competition? So I help kind of align all those things and give them a direction, and then I can help brief in the marketers, the creatives, the advertisers, designers who will help bring that to life.
Wow. I think I participated in one of your focus groups. I volunteered myself.
Yeah.
And I had to answer a few questions. So someone called me. We had a video chat. They called me and asked me a bunch of questions about product design and as a consumer, which one I preferred. I thought it was very interesting, and I think it's good for people to volunteer themselves for any of these opportunities if it comes up. Definitely invite me again if you need anyone's opinion.
Yeah, they're kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
I do think you learn from it all. So how people are asking questions, if you're a business person yourself, you can it's good to be on both sides of market research, and you can see what it's like to be the consumer asking the questions and what questions work well, and what questions you might want to ask in your business. Even taking surveys online, that if you get hit with a survey or, a lot of companies will email their email list saying, can you answer a few questions? I often do them just to see what other companies are asking, what information they're looking for. I find it interesting.
That's so funny. I was going to ask you if you did those. But yeah. I try to participate now after I've learned how insightful they are and helpful they are. It's good. I mean, you're helping the brand help you, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I know you're an entrepreneur also, like you mentioned. And so you found a pajama company for men. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, so it's called Bedfellow. We've been around almost a year now. And the idea basically came about because I had noticed in my own personal life just many of the categories of clothing had been improving over the past, decades or a few years really of, like my athletic wear. I started wearing Lululemon more often, and it was like, wow, these materials are great and they're so stretchy and they're so soft and they feel really good. And, it's hard to go back once you have that. Or like in underwear, there's brands like Tommy John or MeUndies that are making super soft, really. And then once you have those, you can't go back. Or Bombas with socks is making really great socks. And then the same with like mattresses, right? There's all these new mattress companies making great mattresses and bedding and sheets.
Yep.
But then I noticed what I'm actually wearing to bed had still not changed since I was basically like in high school, right? I was wearing old boxers or old gym shorts, or old t-shirts, ratty t-shirts, whatever I had kind of lying around. I was like, well, I guess I'll wear this to sleep in. And I'm like, why am I wearing the old kind of junky stuff? It doesn't look good at all, which my wife will attest to. And it doesn't feel that great, right? It feels okay, I guess. But like when I'm thinking of these Lululemon fabrics that are just so engineered specifically for what they're meant to do, I was like, there should be something designed for sleep, right? As a society, we're valuing sleep so much more. I think we're realizing how important it is. And people are doing all kinds of, apps, and they're taking melatonin, and there's sleep drinks and meditations and doing all these things. But, a key part of that is what's on your skin and your body, especially if you're investing in your mattress and your sheets. Like what you're wearing is actually what's touching your skin, And I thought, what if we looked at really designing and engineering something from the ground up that was really meant for sleep? And we looked at a lot of materials, and, we found our blends that are really super soft, right? They're much softer, I think, than especially most guys are not familiar with these kinds of materials like modal and our bamboo fabric that are just crazy soft, really breathable, moisture wicking, stretchy. They're just great for sleep. And once I tested it and slept in it myself, I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. It's another one of those where I can't go back now to sleeping in old junky boxers. And I thought other people would feel the same. And it also is when we went to the stores, most of what's out there is the old school sort of button down pajama suits that feel to me very sort of grandpa or like generations before us maybe wore, but today's guys are not really wearing that anymore. We did a survey, actually, speaking of surveys, and almost no one in our survey was wearing those kind of classic old school pajamas or even sort of the flannel pants that they sell at like a lot of the bigger stores. Everyone was really wearing either nothing, which is fine. A lot of guys sleep naked or half naked, or they were just wearing some kind of these duct tape solutions of old gym shorts or old boxers. And that's where we thought, okay, it seems like there's an opportunity here to have guys kind of evolve and modernize and upgrade the category and sleep in something that looks better and feels a lot better.
So what does it take in order to build out your own company? So when it comes to having pajamas, basically, where do you start? Do you start with inventory? Do you start with, is there a calendar you follow in terms of like scheduling or planning out for launches, like for Christmas, Black Friday shopping, or where do you even start?
Well, from the very beginning, we had the idea. I had a partner who helped, and we put together, the first thing you need is money, right, to start any business. And you might want to bootstrap it yourself, which I would encourage people to do if they can. We looked to get a little bit of seed money from friends and family, so we did that. And then once we had the money in, which is very exciting, we're like, okay, here we go. We have a business. I guess the first things we did was, focus on the product. We're like, let's make a great product. That was really going to be central to this. So that's when we started looking at factories. That was all just a lot of online research. And then, once we had, we found the factory, we went through a lot of prototypes, got to a really good product that we liked. Then we started thinking, okay, how are we going to market this thing? Once we put in that first order for our first bulk order, we started getting serious about the marketing. And we actually ended up launching for Father's Day last year, which was kind of a push. We tried to rush everything to make sure we would have like our website set up, our product in hand, everything ready to go to launch on Father's Day. We started experimenting with different things, and we continue to experiment with a lot of different marketing channels. But, it's Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, PR, all that kind of thing. And we've just continually evolving and trying out what's going to work, what can work better, what can we optimize. And yeah, in terms of timing, like you asked, it's really, each holiday we did a push for Christmas time, and then for Valentine's Day, and now we have Father's Day coming up again. So we have these, tentpole moments that we want to push out, and we make a great gift for those moments. So we want to make sure we're on people's minds for them. But otherwise, it's just really building awareness is what we're focusing on in this first year.
Mm-hmm. As a brand owner, when do you, I don't want to say when do you quit, or when you see something isn't working, whether it's a color or a SKU or even the brand itself, when do you stop? Like, when do you tell yourself, okay, we got to drop this right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still in the middle of figuring that out. We have some SKUs that we've created, some lines that sell not as well as others, and so we're not going to reorder those. And we've sold out of a few things, and so we reorder those. And it's kind of, now what are we going to do with the back inventory? We have to figure out. But we are, like, right now, our bamboo set is a cooling fabric that's selling really well, and so we're thinking, okay, do we kind of double down and just really focus on the bamboo set as our hero product, which is what we've been doing. But it's really listening to customers, right? Like, what are they purchasing? You could do surveys and research on this, but because we're now actually in market, it's good to just look at the data of what are people actually buying and what do we think we want to invest in. And since the bamboo product has been a bestseller and people are really liking it and it's getting great reviews, and it's actually been easier for us to make and produce, we're like, why don't we just focus on that as our sort of lead product and deprioritize some of the others. But in terms of the whole business, I mean, yeah, that's one of those tough entrepreneurial journey questions. There's definitely going to be hard times. We're going through pretty much throughout this whole time. There's been big questions, and we, want to persevere for sure. We think there's an opportunity here, and if we believe in it, I think we should keep going as far as we can.
Of course. And you guys are doing great. My husband has a pair of the bamboo, the minty colored top and the black shorts, and he loves it.
Yeah, that's actually the modal.
More.
That's
our
other modal fabric. Yeah, no, that it's super soft. People love that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Father's Day is coming up, so I'm going to be ordering for my dad and my father-in-law. I had another question, and I totally forgot. It's going to come to me. It's going to come to me later when it's not appropriate.
Yeah, right.
I remember. So my question is, how there's been a huge issue with production and shipping. Have you been having the same problem as everyone else?
Yeah, we have actually. Most of our products are made out of Peru. And Peru had a really tough time with COVID, and the factory we're working with had a lot of people out for a long time, and they shut down for a while, and then they were kind of hybrid. And when we had to, like I said, we sold out of a few things recently, and we had to try to get reorders in, and it just took way too long. It was really delayed, and so we were sold out of a few colors and sizes on our website. And actually, right now we're going through that again. Some shorts, our long sleeve Henley, which has been popular, is almost sold out. Our bamboo set in one of the colors is almost sold out. And when I'm talking to the factories, I'm like, how fast can we get them in? And yeah, they're all saying they're having delays in getting raw materials, which is slowing them down. And then, yeah, producing and shipping, kind of every step of it is taking longer than it used to. So we're definitely feeling it now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's frustrating, but you know what? Every good product is worth the wait, right? So
yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
And I hope our consumers, can be a little patient with us. We're still a startup. It's hard to predict inventory and have everything in stock when you need, but yeah, we're still growing. Hopefully we'll figure it out as we go.
Okay. So how do you have time to take care of Bedfellows and to do your speaking engagements? How do you juggle everything?
Yeah, I mean, speaking is a kind of an occasional thing that it's often people have read my book and then they like it. They invite me to come speak about, the topics in there, sort of the psychology of brands. I wouldn't say that's not a huge time issue because it's once in a while, I love doing it when they come up, but take the opportunities. The real balance is the consulting, Bedfellow, which, either of those could be full-time. The consulting was full-time until I started Bedfellow. Now I'm kind of splitting both. And then, of course, having 2 young kids, which I know you know all about, and the family, right? So basically balancing all 3 of those and limiting personal time, although I think it's important to have your own personal time as well. And I really enjoy exercise and working out and playing tennis. And I still make sure I get that in at least a few times a week. Otherwise, I think I would go crazy and really not be productive at all the rest of the time, So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's important to still have some of that outlet, and also just take care of yourself physically and mentally and spiritually and everything. As a sleep company, of course, I do prioritize sleep. I'm not one to like pull all-nighters, or I do like to work in the morning. So like often I'll wake up early and do work in the morning, but at night, if my brain is fried, I'll go to sleep and make sure I get good sleep and know I'll be more productive the next day because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, making sure that you take time for yourself. I think it's beyond, I know we like to use that word, #self-care, but I think it has to do with really self-respect, like being able to respect yourself and your boundaries in order for you to produce better work in every facet of your life.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Yeah, you have to, if people put themselves last, and I know it's hard with a family, but you have to still take care of yourself for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of self-respect, as a brand consultant, how do you charge clients? I'm not asking about for the dollar amount, but I mean like how do you bravely and boldly give them your price? Because at least when you're working for an employer, you have the buffer of HR, right? But you're HR, you're the marketing for your team, like you're a one-man show. So how do you so how do you set your price? Like how do you speak to them about pricing?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's definitely part art, part science. There's not like an exact formula. And so I sometimes work directly with clients, so the end sort of, brand who's looking for the help, which was a lot of my work. Now that I'm doing Bedfellow, I found it's actually been better for my time to actually do more freelancing, which is through agencies. So agencies are working with the brands. They need like a strategic director. They'll bring me on. I'm thankful I have a lot of those relationships still. And that just helps because then I can just focus on the work itself and not sort of the management of the project, the management of the client, the budgeting, the building out the team, all those kinds of things they handle. And I'll focus on the actual brand strategy itself, which, is the best part for me. So with those two, there's very different, fee structures. With agencies, they'll often want like a day rate, or generally I still always try to get to just a flat rate. I'll say, I like to be very clear on what the deliverables are. Like, here's what you're looking for from me. Here's what I can help with. Here's the timeline. And I'll, bullet out, here's what you'll get from me. And then I just give a total project cost. And I'll say, here's what the total project is. And I actually often have agencies say, oh, can we work hourly? Or I don't want to be tracking my time and billing my time. And honestly, I don't think that properly reflects the value that I'd be providing. Because, coming up with a great insight or a great line, I might be thinking about it in the shower. I'm often thinking about it all day, and then I write a line. The line itself might take a minute, but it's been days of thinking in the process to get to the right thing. So there's no real, I think, good way to capture the time, and I don't think that's really appropriate, and it really would undervalue it, right? Because if I'm just counting the time I'm sitting at my computer, that's not nearly as much as actually you're thinking about it, and it's also not taking into account all of your experience, and I don't know. So I try to get to a flat fee. I actually think it works better for both parties because then they know ahead of time exactly what their costs are going to be. I know what I can expect for it. And we're all clear and there's no surprises at the end. And, and you say, oh, this took me this many hours and, who knows? So I try to just get to that flat rate fee. And it is a mix of what do I know is the market rate, for that kind of work? What do some of my peers, contemporaries, are charging in this space? It's also partly what is the overall project cost and what do I think my value is that I'm contributing to that. And then when you go direct to client, it's very different because there I'm more positioning myself as an agency where I'll often bring in other freelancers. We'll have a full team going at it. And, with agencies, it's a huge variation into how much they might charge for, a logo development you can get a freelancer to do it for very cheap, or you can get a big agency to do it for like $1 million, right? It's like, it can be all over the place. And with brand strategy and research, it's the value of the thinking that you're paying for, right? Like, is this person going to get me the new creative idea or direction that maybe someone else wouldn't? And so agencies charge what they think they can, right? Basically, like, what can they get away with? How much does a client value this? And it's sometimes you miss. I know when I was client side, when I was agency side, sometimes you're way off. The clients will tell you, this is sticker shock. Like, this is way, like 3 times more than other agencies were going to charge us. And same on the client side. Some agencies would give us a number that's way more than other agencies. And, so it can really vary, and you're really just trying to feel it out. And oftentimes if I give a number to a client and they accept it right away, you're like, I probably could have charged more.
Right.
I actually feel better when they push back a little bit and there's negotiation, and you feel like, okay, this was now appropriate for both of us,
Yeah. That's really interesting. So, and also as an entrepreneur, how do you set your yearly, budget for your income? So, like, everyone has goals, right? So whether your first goal could be out of college could be, okay, by 30, I want to make 6 figures. By 50, I want to be a millionaire, etc. So as an entrepreneur, how do you set your financial goals, and what are the steps you take to achieve them?
I guess we probably should be better about it, For the consulting side, I do have a monthly target that I'd like to hit, just to know that we're meeting all our basic needs. We've done a budget together with my wife's salary, and I know what I should be contributing to that, so that we're covering everything and putting into savings and all that. And so we're good. And so I have that roughly in my head, but because it's so up and down, this kind of freelancing and consulting, sometimes you're getting a whole bunch of projects coming at once. Sometimes it dies down.
Right.
It never, it works out perfectly. So it's kind of an average that I'm shooting for.
Okay.
And then on the Bedfellow side, it is really, this is a much bigger risk, bigger reward type of project, right? Where we're let's try to really grow this brand and make it as big as we can. We don't expect to see real income from it for probably years. It could take years to build up to where it's really making the money that we would take out of it. So it is a much longer term, but yeah, hopefully it could be big one day is the goal.
It will. I'm sure it will. Okay. So one more question. Would you recommend that would you recommend your kids take the same route as you, or how would you go about teaching your kids about career choices and financial goals?
Yeah, I think I grew up with the idea that it's all about doing something you love, something you're interested in, follow your passion, something you heard all the time growing up. And I think that's definitely true, a part of it. I think it does need to be balanced with the realities of life, that you do need to make money, and you need to make sure. But I feel like for my kids, I wouldn't want to squash any of their dreams or ambitions. If they were really passionate about something and they wanted to pursue it, I would love for them to go after it and not feel I need to take a corporate job to be safe. Maybe there's a time in their life where they can take some risk and go for it. I would say that they just have to be careful and make sure there's a backup plan, and know that if you're doing something risky like that, at least hedge it and make sure you'll still be able to take care of yourself or your family, as you grow up, which is, I think, what I've tried to do with Bedfellow is yes, I've launched this company, and I do think I've heard of a lot of entrepreneurs who go all in and quit their job right away. And that can work for sure, but 90% or something of startups fail, right? And I think you should be prepared for that reality, and at least hedge it a bit in that, I also know a lot of entrepreneurs who've been very successful starting companies while working their full-time job and doing it on the side, which is what I'm trying to do with keeping the consulting going while also starting Bedfellow, right? So I know that if one fails, I still have, the other, hopefully. So yeah, you got to keep the realities in mind, but I do still think life is too short to be miserable every day.
Absolutely.
Do something you at least enjoy a bit or interested in or can put yourself into, and hopefully find something that people will pay you for related to that,
Absolutely. Going back to your consulting gig, so pop quiz, what do you think I should do as a brand? What would be your advice for me for Money Crashers?
Yeah, so you mean Money Crashers, not you.
Yes.
Personally,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's good, yeah, because personal branding is a whole, subset of branding, which is not really my specialty. But yeah, for Money Crashers, Yeah, that's interesting. Like I hear a lot about financial literacy lately. I think it's become popular, and I hear people saying, "Oh, it's not taught in schools enough," right? And there's all these memes online of like, "Oh, great, I know about photosynthesis or algebra, but like,
Right.
what the heck's a mortgage? And like, how does my 401k work? And like, what are how do I do my taxes? Right? Like,
Right.
school's not really preparing us for any of that. So I feel like people are very aware of the problem right now, you know? And I know there's definitely companies offering different solutions in this space. I would say, I mean, if I were to approach this as a project, I don't have the answers for you, but how I would approach it is really like do that sort of market research of like what else is out there? How are the other companies in this space positioning themselves, and be really clear, like how do the consumers who we're going after think about those other brands and companies, and where is there space for money crashers? What can we own specifically? Basically, I mean, the core of brand strategy, to be very simple about it, is it's like a Venn diagram with two circles. One side of the circle is what do we own? What's in like our DNA as money crashers that we uniquely are better at or well suited for, or that we specifically do better than others, or maybe could do better than others, or be known for more than others. And then the other side is what do our consumers want? Like who is our target consumer, and what are they looking for? What's needed in the market right now? And where can you match those two? Wherever you have that overlap between what do you offer and what do the consumers want, you can get to a clear, okay, this is a good, rich space for our brand, right? It's something that we can be known for, that we can own, but that's also relevant to what our consumers are looking for, our audience. So, at a high level, that's how I would think about it. And maybe it starts with like, who is our consumer too, like being really clear on who is that target that you want to go after. And then like, what are the problems you're solving in their lives? And that's where I also like to get to, what is that key insight? What's like that key nugget of truth that's like going to unlock it for you? What's something that they're struggling with, or they're wondering, or they don't quite have the right solution for, or they haven't found it yet? Like, how can money crashers kind of be the key that unlocks that one thing for them? So I can't tell you what that is. I would have to do the research and kind of get to know it, but that's how I would approach it.
That was really insightful. Thank you for that. Well, you could follow Daryl, Bedfellow Adventures at bedfellowdreams.com. And I'm going to link your book below. And Daryl, if someone wants to book you for an engagement, where can they go? Do you have a website for them?
Yeah, they can see all this at my website. It's daryl-weber.com. So that's DARYL-WEBER.com. And they can email me off of there. And I have a speaking page on there as well.
Amazing. Daryl, thank you so much for your time. I think my one takeaway from your journey is to not fear getting off the beaten path. I'm so excited to see what's next for you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.